What's going on, guys? It's Corbin here for AcousticWorld.net. And Tony Rice, if you didn't know, has passed away. So, for people who didn't know who Tony was, in my opinion, he is easily one of the greatest acoustic guitar players of all time, particularly in the bluegrass and flat picking genres. He's really one of the top players in that space. And Tony, for me personally, was the guy who inspired me to get into bluegrass. And I'll talk about how that happened in just a second here. But basically, I just wanted to do a quick video for those who either are new to Tony's music, or maybe you're a fan but you haven't listened to him in a while, and just do sort of a retrospective on my three favorite albums of his, why I like them, and yeah, where you can listen to them. So backstory: I was hugely into the Grateful Dead when I first got into the guitar. So Jerry Garcia was probably my number one biggest influence at one point. Back when I was mainly playing electric music, Jerry and the Grateful Dead, and pretty much the whole jam band scene of like the Allman Brothers and all that kind of stuff, was very much what I was into. So I remember learning a ton about Jerry, and one of the things that surprised me was that he originally, got his start, and a lot of his roots were in bluegrass. And for those of you who don't know, Jerry actually used to play the banjo. I think that might have been his first instrument, or maybe I'm messing that up, but for a while he played banjo in this band called Old and in the Way, with Peter Rowan, who is now a pretty famous folk singer type guy. But Old and in the Way was a pretty good bluegrass group. A lot of members of which went on to become famous. So Peter Rowan, Jerry, obviously, and Vassar Clemens was the guy on fiddle, who is excellent too. So that's actually some great listening for you too. If you're not familiar with Old and in the Way, I think you guys will really enjoy that. Check it out and let me know what you think. But anyways, I started listening to that, and then somewhere along the way, I heard that Jerry had done this album called the Pizza Tapes, with two guys, one of which was Tony Rice, and the other was David Grisman. David Grisman I had heard of at the time, but didn't really know a ton about him. Later I would find out that he's like a master mandolin player and bluegrass musician in his own right, and was a pretty close friend of Jerry's. And Tony Rice, I had no idea who he was at the time. Again, I had just listened to the album because I was into Jerry and the Grateful Dead and Old and in the Way. But anyways, I start listening to this album, and the Pizza Tapes, this is. So I'm listening to this album, and I'm like, yeah, Jerry's stuff is pretty good. It sounds good, whatever. But there's this other acoustic guitarist in the mix, and I remember just being blown away by the licks and the solos and the phrasing of this guy, who of course is Tony Rice. But I had no idea like of his reputation or anything. So I'm listening to this, and I just keep getting floored with like every solo that this guy plays. So eventually I look him up, and that was kind of my introduction to Tony Rice, was the Pizza Tapes. So that's my number one favorite album of his. I have to mention, just because I might not have gotten into Tony and into the whole bluegrass scene beyond just Jerry's relation to it if I hadn't started listening to the Pizza Tapes, and that kind of sent me down the Tony Rice rabbit hole. So I think it's a great place to start, especially if you like Jerry's stuff. So that's one I'd point you towards. Some really cool songs on it are Shady Grove, and Rosa Lee McFall is another really pretty song. Long Black Veil is good too. So that's definitely one to check out. The next Tony album, and probably the next one I listened to, not that these are in order or anything, but the next one I would point you towards is Blake and Rice. Okay, so this was kind of a duet type album that Tony did with Norman Blake. I think there's at least two of them, actually. There's Blake and Rice and Blake and Rice 2. But I prefer the first one. They're both really good. But anyways, Blake and Rice, you essentially have on this album two of the all-time greatest bluegrass flat-picking masters of all time, trading solos, playing their favorite songs, playing covers of their favorite songs. So how can you go wrong, right? There's a good mix of instrumental tunes. Because it's Tony, there's Gordon Lightfoot covers. If you don't know, Tony was super into Gordon's music. I think they were friends, but also something about Tony's voice just lends itself to Gordon Lightfoot tunes. But so one of Gordon's songs on there that's covered is I'm Not Sayin', which is really good. New River Train is a classic. Trying to think what my other favorites are. Red Haired Boy and Whiskey Before Breakfast, they do a good job of. Ridge Road Gravel is really good. But it's one of those albums I would just listen to in its entirety. There's a ton of great songs. They both take turns singing, take turns soloing, playing guitar. If you're a guitarist, you can learn so much from this album about phrasing and filler licks and solos and rhythm, and there's just so much there to unpack, so I'd really recommend it. And that's Blake and Rice, so number 2 there. Third and finally, I would point you towards Church Street Blues, the Tony Rice album. So Church Street Blues is actually a song Norman Blake wrote, and his version is amazing. Tony's is the more popular one now, I think, but Norman's is really good. It's hard to say if I like it better, but I think right now I've been listening to his version more. But anyways, Church Street Blues is another awesome Tony Rice album. The title track's amazing, obviously. There's a bunch of Gordon Lightfoot songs. Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, Pride of Man, both really good. And the other song I love is this Tom Paxton song. What's it called? I'm forgetting. That's embarrassing. Anyway, there's this Tom Paxton song. Maybe I'll think of it before the video ends. If not, I'll write about it in the description or whatever. I apologize. But he covers a bunch of awesome songs on that album. But it's a neat album because it's the only one out of these three that is just Tony pretty much playing solo by himself, and it's amazing how captivating the album is with just one guy and his guitar. That's really what I love about it, and again, what turned me on to this kind of music. There's just so many things you can listen to where it's just one man and his instrument, and it just holds your attention completely, and you're just blown away by the level of musicianship, and this is certainly one of those albums. So that's it, guys. Rest in peace, Tony Rice. Obviously, this is just a sort of small tribute to a guy who definitely changed my life in the course of my guitar playing. So and obviously he had an impact on lots of people besides me. So that's it, guys. Let me know your favorite Tony Rice songs or albums or memories, and I'll see you in the next video.